I'm really excited to be here to talk about one of my favorite fields that's not only shaping the future of technology, but it is also redefining how businesses operate today, edge computing. So we live in a world where data processing no longer happens in the cloud. It happens where all the action is, whether it's doing real-time insights for smart cities or enhancing AI capabilities in healthcare, or just supporting the backbone of the autonomous vehicles. Edge computing is making it all possible. But edge computing is also not just about speed or location. It is also about unlocking opportunities like scaling AI applications, or enhancing security and privacy, or faster innovation. Today in this session, two of my esteemed colleagues, Alex Haddock and Chris Lynch, will join me, and together we'll explore the challenges, strategies, and all the proven methods for deploying edge solutions effectively so you can leverage its full potential in your own areas. Please welcome Chris and Alex. Oh, I had a heavy lunch, so I'm why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
My name is Alex Haddock. I'm a Chief Technologist for Compute in UK, Middle East, and Africa.
Thank you. I'm Chris Lynch. I lead the product management team for the compute software management organization.
Thank you, guys. All right, so let's look at some of the compelling data that showcases the growth of edge computing because of the rising demand for real-time analytics, data security and privacy, and AI-powered applications. 77% of the organizations, they consider edge workloads highly critical. IDC predicts that approximately 25% of the servers shipped will be located at the edge by 2027. And by 2029, all the new AI market trends shows that 60% of the edge solution will include composite AI. So now I will hand it over to Alex, who will deep dive into the edge target segments, the unique challenges, and the requirements in retail, and how HP is helping customers win at the edge. There we go. Sorry.
Thanks, Priya. Now, edge computing is not new. Our CEO, Antonio Neri, back at Discover 2018, said the future would be edge-centric, and then invested $4 billion into the area. He also mentioned that again yesterday. And of course, there's another word we can't get away with, and that's artificial intelligence. 2 words, sorry. And that is really what's driving the new growth in edge platforms. If you just look at one of those areas, imaging and computer vision, then we can look across industries. We can look at, for instance, healthcare, where radiologists and consultants are getting assistance in diagnosing cancers much sooner, which is a fantastic use case. If you look at cross-industry, where people have warehousing and distribution, then we're seeing robotics aided by computer vision, and we're also seeing optimization of workstations and colleagues within those industries as to how to better optimize workflows. If we look at manufacturing, then one of the early ones was defect detection. I can see one of our ex-colleagues in the room who was an expert in that area. So we at HPE, we point cameras at our production lines so we can see the servers coming through, and if they're either miscabled or broken DIMMs, broken CPUs, we can see that, and we can also reconcile connections with what was ordered. So that's an example in manufacturing. And then if you look at things like oil and gas, which could apply also to construction, then we're seeing a lot of safety and compliance. Is somebody wearing their hard hat? Are they following the safe route on an oil rig? Is somebody missing, for instance? The key thing underneath all that, though, it's actually a very common platform. We're seeing very similar systems and very similar underlying platforms. It's more than the ISV and the model that is chosen that then changes the use case of the system. So as Priya mentioned, I will sort of draw on retail. I do have a number of retail customers. I have a retail specialism, although I do have some customers in other verticals as well, from pharmaceutical to financial. Now, what we're seeing in retail is traditionally there's been a very large edge. Those have normally been for stores operations. However, we have seen some customers start to move those workflows into the public cloud. The larger customers tend to still have edge servers for stores operations. Others may be public cloud with some offline capability in the point of sales. What I am seeing across both of those, however, is either a refresh to far more capable systems or a reintroduction of systems into those stores. Now, the reasons for that include a massive proliferation of what you could potentially call shadow edge. We're familiar with shadow IT from the cloud area, where people were starting to spin up instances in AWS and Azure without lines of business understanding why they're there, IT understanding there for cost controls and security and compliance. We're starting to see that in stores. I have some customers who've found up to 20 different new devices in various locations, all put in by lines of business, not necessarily nefarious means, but people are trialing different systems. They're putting little Intel NUC-style devices in, PCs, other servers. One retailer I've recently worked on suddenly discovered they had an entirely new switching network in their stores that had been deployed unmanaged and unknown by networks for the CCTV network. So this shadow edge needs to be brought in and under control. But to do that, we also need to make sure that the platforms are more flexible and scalable to be able to support the lines of business needs. Now, to do that, that's actually a significant investment. If you look at retail stores in the past, for instance, it may be an 8 or 16 core server with a couple of disks, and that's more than sufficient. Nowadays, as we're starting to move to these AI use cases, you're familiar with all the GPUs and costs of GPUs. We move to containers, we need far more resources. We need to be able to run old VMs as well. Suddenly, this per store investment becomes significantly more. And when you're looking at AI, there are some use cases that we're seeing more and more commonly to actually drive the initial investment to get those systems in store. So the most common one I see is shrinkage detection, loss prevention, and this is where we've all used a self-checkout where we scan our own products. A lot of people are mis-scanning by mistake. You can get a little nudge to say, sorry, did you mean to do that? But unfortunately, some people do it on purpose as well. And it's quite educational working with my retailers because I've learned lots of new ways to get a cheap ribeye. Naturally, I wouldn't do that. So by nudging even the people who have got criminally minded, then actually they find that's a good way to actually stop them doing it, and it saves having issues with security, for instance. So that shrinkage piece is the easy way to get things in store, but once you've got the infrastructure in there, the platform, as long as the platform's adaptable and scalable, is what Priya will talk about soon, then you can start looking at other use cases. You point a camera at it, you can potentially look at real-time inventory, you can look at planogram compliance, how the shop's laid out, and worker safety is another key one. We're seeing lots of threats against workers, but also things like trips and spills can come into it as well. So the world's your oyster, and really you in the business can actually quite often come up with new use cases that we haven't even thought about. Now here's an example of a retail edge layout. Now this could be another industry. Actually, I mentioned before, the platforms are all fairly similar. The underlying control, you need a good system, ideally that can handle VMs and containers together, the orchestration, rollout, management, supportability of that. And then you need your GPU platforms, your inferencing platforms. And actually, depending on the ISV you choose, it could be something around shrinkage in retail, or it could be compliance or safety in construction, for instance. But this is a retail use case, so bear with me on that one. And what you can see is we're starting to see in the larger stores, I'm typically seeing a refresh of stores operations compute to be AI capable for the future, but for the moment it's more focusing on the internal retail platforms. So you need to have the capability to run a VM with the store's operations systems on it. That could be an in-house product from the very big supermarkets, or it could be a product from, say, NCR Voyix or Diebold Nixdorf. Then the legacy VMs running alongside, plus scope to go into the future. So it's kind of almost like I want it all and I want it now, but I want it cost effectively as well. And actually by separating the AI and videos and store servers in the larger stores, you've got another benefit there. The AI systems today, whilst there's significant business value, aren't yet business critical. They will be, we know that, we know how AI is going. But for the moment, if you lost your shrinkage protection, your store can carry on running. Typically, the store systems are clustered, so that then prevents you having to put a GPU in every single node when you maybe only need GPUs in one node. Now, when you get to a smaller store, you can't afford to put in multiple systems. So you need a small, efficient system that can both handle the containerized workloads, but also then start to look at the new AI workloads as well. And I think Priya might have something to talk about on that. One other thing I've seen is a massive increase in that compute. So when I started to talk to our business around, I need a small compute server. Oh, look at this one, it's got 8 cores or 16 cores. It'll do 64 gig of RAM. It's like, no, I need 32 to 64 cores, please, and I would like 128 to 256 gig of RAM and a GPU, and I want it small, quiet, and cost effective. So it really has changed the sort of systems that are going into the edge. This is an example of a customer that I've worked with recently. Unfortunately, I can't name them at present, and quite often some of the larger retailers, whilst always asking for a reference, not looking at anyone in the room, will not able to give one themselves. But this was done this year, a refresh of edge compute, over 1,000 stores, from modern purpose-built supermarkets to a traditionally small retail area. If you've been to the UK, we're quite a cramped little nation. You can be in some little tiny bits of real estate where you've got a huge amount of produce forced in there and very little room for any form of operations. This customer had to go from 5 to 6-year-old servers, again, those old 4 or 8 core boxes, dual socket, 8 cores with a couple of disks, to a modern AI and containerized capable system. So every single store, so that's over 1,000 stores and over 2,000 nodes, is a 48-core CPU with 256 gig of RAM. That is so they can then run their NCR Voyix platform on top of the VMs in that system, but also they can then start to be ready for the future, ready for new AI workloads, ready for other stores' workloads as well. So you're looking at things like anything as simple as access control, all the way through to edge shelf labels, ESLs, and then all the new retail media networks. So if you don't work in retail, you'll go into a store and you'll be seeing all these nice fancy displays popping up more and more. Retailers want to be clever and clever about what they show you. And that future capacity. So in this particular example, we'd already worked with this retailer on the computer vision aspect on a DL325 Gen 10, but when we came to this very large retail rollout, these systems can be in place for a very long time. Again, it's a massive investment when you're suddenly scaling to thousands of stores. You can do a business case for one system in one store, you multiply that by 2,200, it's a massive investment to the business. So we worked with AMD on their single socket systems. Now, single socket for me, you can get a ton of cores in there. We could have gone for 160 now. As long as you can get the memory in, frankly, even in the data center, then single socket is very worth looking at. Just on power savings alone against a dual socket system, we're looking in the hundreds of thousands of pounds. Plus, they're also more cost effective and they're quieter. In fact, I would normally go for a 2U server, so a 2U server is quieter still. But in this case, the customer had a requirement to also put some switching in some of the stores because they're using Azure Stack HCI, which has now been branded Azure Stack Local, if anyone saw that yesterday, so my slide is now incorrect. It's Microsoft Azure Local. So the larger stores had 2 nodes with Aruba switching, which has to be validated as well, and those were being mounted on wall-mount racks. Smaller stores, either 2 nodes direct cabled or a lot of single nodes. So single node is absolutely critical. You need to make sure that if you're looking at small convenience stores that whoever the HCI provider is or whomever the vendor is, that single node is supported. So Microsoft's come on leaps and bounds in that area. And then to round it off, you need to be able to operate and control and understand those stores. So Microsoft, obviously, with Azure Stack has its own control plane. But for us to be able to show a unified view of hardware issues, do automated case logging, and link that into the customer ServiceNow program was absolutely critical. And then there was a very nice sustainability aspect at the end. Now, I'm not going to say that was essential to the deal, but sustainability in retail is always going to be driven primarily by produce, distribution, and packaging. But more and more organizations are being gold with that sustainability piece. So being able to go into the IT team and say, look, we can go and show you carbon reporting, we can show you further up actually into sustainability insights from HPE, your Aruba switching footprint and do some control of that was very valuable. And in other industries, I actually work with a pharmaceutical customer whose IT department is actually gold on carbon footprint savings, and I suspect that's going to happen in more and more organizations as well. So as I move on from that, I think I'm going to hand it to you.
Yes. All right, thank you, Alex. Oh, you went over time.
Well, you asked me to.
All right.
You said it was too short.
All right, thank you, Alex. All right, let's talk about the top priorities for edge computing. So basically, we see a lot of diverse requirements from our customers. Some customers have, they lack space, so they need something small, something short depth. Some customers, they don't have adequate cooling in their stores, in their facilities. So, and some customers also have very dusty locations, so they require a dust filter of some sort. And then there are customers who have very limited power. And then there are also customers who deploy their servers close to the employees. So noise restrictions are also there to maintain a comfortable working environment. So basically, there is no size fits all for edge. Everybody has different requirements. And then edge servers, again, security is also very critical for the edge because edge servers are often deployed in a very easy to access location, like retail stores, like Alex mentioned, or factory floors, so which makes them highly vulnerable to physical tampering. So physical security of the server itself is also very critical. Additionally, edge computing often involves processing customer data, financial transactions, or even sensitive information. Which include, so basically protecting this data at the edge is also highly critical if a device is physically compromised. And then finally, management is also very complex at the edge, especially when you have 1,000 stores in the field. So having a centralized remote management to keep up with the maintenance of those devices is also very important for edge computing. So let's look at HPE's edge compute portfolio. We do have a good mix of servers that's positioned to meet all of the needs that I just mentioned, the diversity, the diverse requirements within the customers, the security, and also the management piece. So in our compact section, we have the microserver, the HP ProLiant DL20, and the HP ProLiant ML30. We have all three servers for those customers who are looking for some light compute, and they're ideal for small, medium businesses. And then on the general section, we have DL320, DL325, and ML110, suitable for those customers with proper infrastructure to handle power, cooling, and space needs. And then in the compact ruggedized section, we have our brand new 1P2U HP ProLiant DL145 Gen 11, which is purpose-built for the edge. It supports a wide range of edge use cases, compute or AI workloads, and it meets all the diverse needs, security, and management that we just talked about. Let me give you some background on how we came up with this product, DL145. So last year, during Discover Las Vegas, a few of our sales leaders, they reached out to our head of compute, Krista Satterthwaite, and they told her that our current portfolio, it didn't meet the unique needs for edge computing. So Krista took that feedback, and she asked product management team to dig deeper. So we spent several hours talking to customers, partners, and sales folks to really understand what were the challenges and what was needed from HPE. The collaboration basically led to the creation of DL145 Gen 11, which is truly engineered for the edge. So what value does DL145 bring to the table? So DL145 is very small, it's very compact, it is budget-friendly, and it is also impressively quiet. It is powered by AMD's SP6 Sienna processor. Sienna offers incredible performance, and also they're highly energy efficient, providing best price per performance to watt ratio. And for AI and computer vision workloads, DL145 can support up to 3 NVIDIA L4 GPUs. It is also packed with enterprise-grade security features, including Silicon Root of Trust, TPM 2.0, IDEF ID, and platform certificates. DL145's robust design ensures that it can operate in a very harsh environment. Additionally, it comes with HP Compute Ops Management, a powerful tool that allows you to manage thousands of servers from a central location. Now, let's take a quick product tour, my favorite. Woohoo! Yeah, our marketing team, they did a really good job with the video. Thank you. All right, moving forward. Okay, all right. So what differentiates DL145 Gen 11 from rest of the ProLiant servers? First, like I said, it's very compact. It's about 15 inches wide, 16 inches deep, which is basically half of the size of your traditional GPU servers. And then it's also very quiet. The decibel level ranges between 35 to 40 dB. Typical hairdryer is about 70 to 90. So it's very, very quiet server. And then it's also very resilient. It can operate between -5 to 55 degrees Celsius, and it can also handle shocks and vibrations. And then in addition to all the enterprise-grade security, it also supports, it has a lot of physical security features. It has the Kensington lock, it has the bezel lock, it has the chassis intrusion detection. And then for data security, we have qualified a ton of self-encrypting drives. And then it's also very flexible. You can actually wall mount it, you can rack mount it, or you can desk mount it. And then finally, it comes with pretty much all the softwares that we have for remote management, ILO, OneView, and Compute Ops Management. So this is DL145's ecosystem. So we have partnered with industry-leading AI partners, Clarifai, IronYarn, and StrataVision, to support the AI applications at the edge. And then we have also partnered with Microsoft Azure, SUSE Rancher, Red Hat OpenShift, SpectroCloud, StoreMagic, and VMware for edge infrastructure management. And now I will hand it over to Chris, who will deep dive into how Compute Ops Management makes edge deployment easier, more efficient, and more secure.
Thank you, Priya. So as Priya and Alex had demonstrated today, a lot of our customers are moving workloads from the traditional data center to more locations than ever, where workloads and applications are processing different types of workloads and applications, servicing different type of experiences, from retail to manufacturing to design. The ideas are limitless at this point. But with that comes the complexity of managing these new locations where servers and compute and the data are located. So customers are looking for ways to scale their IT operations to more efficient means by whether it's that initial configuration, the lifecycle management of those systems, to the decommissioning and replacement of those systems end to end. So managing those, your environments, you want a centralized tool that you can use without necessarily deploying additional software within your environment. As I'll show here on the next slide, our approach to server management, or just in general management of our platforms, is from a unified singular console that's powered by the GreenLake platform. So for customers that are already traditionally deploying switches or access points and using Aruba Central, or Alletra current gen storage platforms and managing them from the DSCC. We also have that ability to manage servers in a singular type of manner. So no matter where you deploy these systems, you can access the management tool from anywhere in the world with just a simple web browser. So we introduced Compute Ops Management, or HPE GreenLake for Compute Ops Management, about 2 years ago. We have now 12,000 or so unique customers using Calm today, managing thousands of servers worldwide. Use cases for customers range from very simple, I just want to monitor a server for its overall health and inventory, to I have over complex challenges of managing firmware as I am addressing security vulnerabilities, or I want to utilize a feature that I've asked some product team to provide to me in a newer platform. So customers are also looking at ways to reduce the complexity of managing those systems. I mean, show of hands here, who has double the budget and double the resources and double the time to do all of these operations? Not a single hand? Shocking. So customers are being asked to do more with less. I mean, that's been a common ask from IT organizations, from the C-suite on down to IT organizations over the better part of 20 plus years. Right? Virtualization helps customers address the portability and movability of workloads and being able to deploy faster those workloads. Containers are a new way of developing and distributing applications in a modern era. And customers need the ability, that same sort of power of mobility of managing your servers in a secure way. So Compute Ops Management allows customers to define policies that will support workloads ranging from, again, as simple as BIOS settings to firmware policies, regardless of its generation. Being able to monitor for the overall health and alerting of a system. When something goes wrong, how do you handle that event in a graceful manner? So we're seeing a lot of customers saving a lot of time in terms of how much they're actually interacting or managing a large volume of servers. We're starting to see a significant cost savings in not just the amount of staff that they have to manage these systems. That means that they spend more time on innovation and other initiatives in your organizations to bring out new applications and new customer experiences. On top of that, we're starting to see customers also where they deploy like the DL145 at the edge, where sending a person out to service something like system updates, whether it be firmware or an operating system or patching the system, reducing the amount of time you actually have to send somebody out there, because that's time and energy as well as the travel costs for that individual. And additionally, where you're deploying these in like office locations where you can mount this server on the wall, you don't have highly skilled, or you don't want to train those individuals, or if you're in a retail location, you don't want the store manager to have the keys to that infrastructure, right? You want to control that. You want to centrally manage that in a secure way. So then lastly, as the conference here this week, and you saw back in Las Vegas, AI is the big buzzword these days. And AI plays a key role within Compute Ops Management and the evolution of how we support our customers and bring new experiences to supporting that infrastructure. So whether that's being able to gain additional insights into how you're utilizing that system or systems in your environment, to the end of life and how should you replace those systems with more modern technology and services that we provide to you, to providing a tailored experience on alerting, on being proactive instead of reactive all the time. Which then helps in support case automation and management. So you're spending less time with servicing those systems and more time, deploying and designing and architecting those new experiences and new capabilities. So quicker time to resolution, getting more resilient in identifying and getting to root cause analysis for ongoing issues. Nothing is more annoying than to go through a problem and you have your customer on the other end of the line saying, I have a problem, and you're like, everything's green. What do you mean you have a problem? So trying to find where the source of the problem is quicker, getting your customer back and happy, so that way you're not losing those opportunities and gaining more mind share, more customers is very important to everyone here. So And then lastly, as we've talked about the cloud and AI and the various different partners we have available to us, GreenLake, the cloud platform, allows us to better deliver experiences and capabilities to you, which in then turn deliver those services and experiences to your customers in a trusted, secure manner. So taking into account compute as well as networking and storage, you're able to manage these platforms and systems from that unified single console from the cloud from anywhere in the world, securely and consistently. And the deal of 145 is definitely a compelling offer for a lot of customers that are looking for scaling out your edge computing needs and requirements. So with that, certainly want to say it was a pleasure having the conversation with Priya and Alex here today. So with that, thank you for your time, and everyone enjoy the rest of Discover. Safe travels.
Cool.